As we all know, congestion pricing is coming to New York. And with literally every proposal, there will be blowback, and congestion pricing is no different. How dare the government try to infringe on my right to take my car into Manhattan? How dare our supposedly progressive officials implementing a regressive tax on the poorest New Yorkers? And you seem to never get away from these people, as they have crossed political lines, either from the Democrats or from the Republicans. But I say, ignore those people. Congestion pricing is an actual good policy, and as I mentioned earlier, there will be resistance, but then as more and more people understands the ins and outs of congestion pricing, there will be more support for it. Now, I understand that this is a very controversial topic, but let me set one thing clear. If you feel the need to debate me, come with the facts and debate what I say. If you ignore what I say, fine, but expect no more than a timestamp and a copy and paste message from me. With that being said, let's begin. Everyone complains about traffic. Oh, traffic is so bad today. I had to drive half an hour to go 3 city blocks. But the only tried and tested way of getting rid of traffic is to lessen the amount of cars on the road. Believe me, we already tried and failed at other options. So how do you lessen the amount of cars on the road? Well, you can impose a fee when driving into Manhattan. So some people trying to get to Manhattan would think, let's not drive today and take other modes that are conveniently 30 feet below ground. With some of those drivers gone, congestion goes down and everyone can drive faster. That's the entire policy. There are so many winners with congestion pricing. For one, the air and soil would be nicer, because you won't have a bunch of cars releasing greenhouse gases. And even when we switch to electric cars, it still won't solve air pollution because of the amount of tire and road wear that they create. Air pollution is linked to many health issues that cost the New York City economy $21 billion. And according to some smart people, not me, when you drive a car into New York City, you cost about $80 in associated damages. No other mode of transit comes close to that number. So in reality, asking drivers to cover around 30% of the damage is a moderate policy, especially more so when the 2 major highways in Manhattan, which is where you will find the most damage caused to residents, are exempt from congestion pricing. So really, this congestion pricing plan is a pretty moderate attempt to curb pollution. People who live in Manhattan are a major winner. With fewer cars on the road, it means less air pollution and less noise pollution. I talked about what air pollution is and how it is bad, but noise pollution is a beast in its own right. Noise pollution can cause high blood pressure, lost productivity, and sleep disruption. Just a 5 decibel decrease can increase economic productivity by nearly $4 billion, which goes to show the power of noise pollution. Yes, I know that elevated trains are loud, but freeways are much louder. And for freeways, there is constant noise. At least for the elevateds, it is not constant, and we found ways to soundproof them, to make them sound like the humming of a dishwasher. And Lower Manhattan got rid of elevated trains in 1955, so the only real loud thing are cars. People who walk, bike, and take public transit will win with congestion pricing. And these people make up the absolute majority of people in New York City, whether anti-congestion pricing advocates admit it or not. With fewer cars, you can take some of the road space back for pedestrians, and you can use it to construct new commercial centers, which would boost the economy. With additional revenue that can top $1 billion collected by congestion pricing, the New York City subway and the bus network can get a boost, especially when the MTA has been subjected to on and off funding switches for decades. Sure, $1 billion isn't a lot, but that's something guaranteed every year. And hey, we can start a discussion on where that money should be going, and our outrageous construction costs, but one step at a time. Even drivers would benefit from congestion pricing. As I said earlier, the only proven way to reduce traffic is to limit the amount of cars on the road. And to do that, there are a few options. And one of them is by making people reconsider if they need to make the trip by car, or if they need to make the trip at all. The way to do it is to charge drivers some money. Some drivers might bail, which means freed up road capacity for others to drive on, making car trips faster. Think of it this way. This charge will make your trip go faster. I remember my dad driving into Manhattan and taking the Williamsburg Bridge. You know traffic is bad when you are on the Williamsburg Bridge counting how many J trains pass by. You know, the train that has a ton of issues and runs very infrequently. But if I can pay $23 to make my dad drive faster, I would do it. And that is what congestion pricing gives. But with every good policy, there will be pushback. So I think it is only fair to address them. I am going to start with possibly the biggest point from anti-congestion pricing advocates. That congestion pricing is a regressive tax that will overburden the poor. In my opinion, this statement is very misleading. If you take it at face value, it seems very convincing. Everyone has to pay a fixed fee when coming into Manhattan. And since lower income families have less money, that fixed fee is going to represent a larger percentage than someone making millions of dollars per year. But this statement assumes that every, or most of the lower income families drive into Manhattan every single day. That is absolutely not the case when 9% of low-income people actually take a car into Manhattan every day. The other 79% of lower-income people, you guessed it, take a bus, train, or bike into Manhattan. So this tax is already being dodged legally by 79% of low-income people, and anyone wanting to dodge the horror that is a $23 charge during rush hour can take a subway train that costs $2.90. Also, owning a car is expensive because between paying for gas, car insurance, and parking, those costs add up to 10 grand a year. Meanwhile, a monthly pass on the New York City subway is $132. And doing some math, the price of taking the subway for 1 year is $1,584. That is 6 times cheaper than owning a car, which is why not only do lower income people take the subway, middle and high income people take the subway as well. This is also why, despite the many criticisms that I have of the MTA, the New York City subway works well enough for most New Yorkers to never own a car. So if you want to actually help lower income people, and in the process, help the overwhelmingly majority of New Yorkers when it comes to transit issues, maybe fight for better frequencies on the New York City subway, like what the Riders Alliance did with 6-minute service. I will get back to that later. The next few points are just very nitty-gritty. The first one is that congestion pricing won't increase car speeds because London had a congestion pricing program and that did not make cars go faster. That is a true statement because of exemptions. People who live inside of the congestion pricing zone get a 90% discount. Cars that can carry 9 people are exempt. Electric cars are exempt until 2025. While I do believe that there should be a few exemptions, especially those who have disabilities and emergency workers, these exemptions are just way too much to the point that people can still drive. And I want to take a quick side note here. Although driving speeds have remained constant, every mode of transit has increased its speed, like the London Underground, where delays have been cut by 40% and rail service has been increased by 30%. So literally for every other mode of transit has increased speeds while driving has remained constant. I will take it as a win. And if London actually wants to increase car speeds, decrease the amount of exemptions, which New York City is doing. The second one is that congestion pricing will impact Bronx residents because of all the traffic that will now go towards the Cross Bronx Expressway. While that is true, the MTA is monitoring traffic on the expressway and are installing thousands of air purifiers. So whatever effect that extra congestion would have on the Bronx would get mitigated. Also, congestion pricing should be extended to the Bronx too. Like, it is cool that Manhattan has congestion pricing, but let's help out the Bronx as well. Especially when the Bronx has some of the highest rates of asthma in the city. Bronx residents deserve the same respect as Manhattan residents too. The third one comes from our neighbors over in New Jersey, who filed a lawsuit to stop congestion pricing. In the lawsuit, it states that congestion pricing will divert more traffic over to New Jersey, and that is bad because of air pollution. It sounds convincing until you realize that the same politicians crying the loudest about congestion pricing also approved a $11 billion widening through Jersey City. That is certainly going to increase traffic because of the rules of induced demand. Like, if you're going to argue for something, at least be consistent about it. And to counter that point, most studies show that the effect of congestion pricing in New Jersey is negligible. That makes sense when you realize that in the New Jersey counties closest to New York City, only 1.6% commute by car. The rest use, you guessed it, public transit. States have the right to put tolls on their roads, and if Phil Murphy and Josh Gottheimer really cared about transit issues, I have an idea. Why don't they cancel that $11 billion widening project and give that to New Jersey Transit and Amtrak? That will help like 50 times more people, especially lower income people, you know, the group that you claim you care about the most. The fourth one is that congestion pricing would be bad for the economy because by tolling truck drivers, that cost will be passed on to the consumers. But here's the thing. Congestion pricing will make cars and trucks go faster, which means truck drivers can complete an extra trip with their time. That increased efficiency would also be passed to the consumer, which can lower prices. Also, by taking road space and marking it for pedestrians, which congestion pricing allows, it will actually increase economic growth. Take Barcelona, where under a superblock program, they took away road space and gave it back to pedestrians. The result was a $2.7 billion increase in the local economy. And mind you, it was a very modest program, where Barcelona only created 5 superblocks. But since they were such a success, especially when it came to the economy and reducing air pollution, the superblock program will be radically expanded. My point is that taking away road space and giving it back to pedestrians has worked before, and has translated to massive new economic output. So it is wrong to say that congestion pricing is going to equal lower economic output. And I know congestion pricing is not a panacea. There are some unanswered questions, like balancing the needs of public and road spaces so that congestion pricing actually speeds up trips for car owners. But the biggest unanswered question is how officials want to get rid of cars, but they aren't really entertaining more train options, as they only want more buses and bike lanes. I like bikes, and I definitely want buses to be improved, but they are a band-aid to our transit problems. No one is going to bike from, say, Jamaica to the financial district. They are going to take the E-train. If this city wants to be competitive, we need to make sure that we beef up our transit options. De-interlining would be a great first step, and it doesn't have to be really radical. It could be as simple as the B and N swap in Brooklyn that would do wonders for capacity throughputs on the Broadway and 6th Avenue trunk lines and its associated branches. And F and M swap on Queens Boulevard would end the horrible junction known as Queens Plaza, which can in turn further boost capacity. Fixing up the 59th Street junction would be a great step too, as by doing so, frequencies can be doubled on the Central Park West portion of the 8th Avenue trunk line. I argue that by doing these simple de-interlining changes and running it for a few months, riders would see the benefits of de-interlining and would argue for more changes. Officials should also be pushing for more transit expansion. My friend Alexi did a video on the shortlist of the New York City subway proposals, so please go check it out after this video. But I am going to mention a few train lines that I think should be built. First, the 2nd Avenue subway would be built with 4 tracks south of 63rd Street to combat the reverse branching nature of the 2nd Avenue subway, and should turn west to run across town via 125th Street. This would decongest the overcrowded Lexington Avenue subway and serve as a new transit option for hundreds of thousands of Manhattan East Side residents. We also want QueensLink, which we are helping to advocate for, which would double frequencies to Rockaway residents and provide a north-south connection in Queens. The 7 train project would upgrade the existing LIRR Port Washington branch into regional rail and relieve the 800,000 commuters that take the 7 train, while the Utica Avenue subway would serve the massive transit desert that is Southeast Brooklyn and link them to Manhattan and downtown Brooklyn jobs. Again, please check the shortlist video out after you're done with this video. And there are even more projects that the shortlist didn't mention, like the Franklin Avenue shuttle extension to Bedford Nostrand Avenue, or a cross Bronx subway. So if you want a sequel to the shortlist, comment below to let Alexi know. I know that our officials want to reduce car usage. That is a good thing to strive for. At the same time, they are not taking New York City's transit needs very seriously. Whether it is thinking that buses are trains, then wondering why select bus service has underdelivered, or auctioning off precious old right-of-ways for a park that nobody wants, I think that they lost the plot with congestion pricing. So in actuality, congestion pricing is just the bare minimum to get us started. It is just a step in a time we need a giant leap. This is why instead of fighting with the city with every tiny petty detail with congestion pricing, we are directing our battles to fight for better transit. By doing so, it will take the moderate congestion pricing plan that we have and turn it into a revolution in a time when we need one. If anti-congestion pricing groups are actually serious with helping out poorer folks, they should be fighting for better public transit. I feel like I need to repeat this, but the overwhelming majority of low-income residents take buses and trains, not cars. With all the faults of congestion pricing, I think it is still a good policy. It will deliver on cleaner air and lower pollution. But again, these groups are fighting congestion pricing on carefully cherry-picked numbers, and not focusing on the entire picture. Congestion pricing is good policy, and we should be fighting to make it better, not to strip the bare minimum policy away to make New York City a more car-dependent city. Because the last time we tried doing that, it ended in disaster.